Okay, we'll go in 5, 4, 3, 2. Jeremy. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jay. I love the new music. It's a
Yeah, it's a
swanky
little,
start to the day. I love
it's
it.
like, I feel like it's music that goes along with coffee. I don't know. Maybe we'll switch it up. I like
It's
to
like a
change up the intro,
Starbucks.
keep people, the 30-second countdown was too long, people were telling me. So we're going to give it a 10-second countdown and hopefully people connect or just include more small talk at the beginning.
I like it.
I
Love
like
it.
it too. Just as we were easing into the new year, maybe it's not a bomb that got thrown into the cannabis industry, but I will say two things. One, sad and sort of practical, is that the fires in California are having a devastating effect, certainly on LA and the surrounding area, but also on the industry down there as well. It's been a really challenging time. So thoughts there, and we put a link about how to get involved on our newsletter today. That's sort of part one and the most pressing, but the other is rescheduling. And rescheduling has been rescheduled, unfortunately. Was supposed to start next week. The ALJ hearing was meant to be the 21st. We got word this week that it's now pushed off at least 3 months. I hope that at least 3 months is not doing too much work in that sentence, but it's going to be a long 3 months.
It'll be a long 3 months. I mean, I think, just in terms of what I wanted to cover this month, I was disappointed to see it be pushed back from my own, selfish point of view. But I think for the industry, it is a tough blow, right? Like there's just been not much federal reform under the Biden administration. We're sort of, as an industry, asking for peanuts and breadcrumbs, and we're just not getting it, right? And so it's going to be another 3 months. As we wrote in the newsletter today, it's another 3 months of paying these very onerous 280E taxes. That's a drag on balance sheets. At the same time, Shane Pennington, the lawyer working on behalf of the pro-reform group, did reveal some of the strategy behind seeking the delay. And it seems like it was his view that, if we went through this process as the DEA had written it up, starting on January 21st, there would not have been a good result. So, you kind of have to weigh the good with the bad here. But a delay is a delay. And, it sucks for many operators in the industry right now.
Yeah, I agree. And looking ahead the next 3 months, like presumably there would need to be leadership at the DEA to actually represent their position 3 months hence,
Yeah.
which is also, I don't know. It's a question mark. There will be people at the DEA, but will we know who it is, what their positions will be? Will they be ready for a hearing like this? I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, that is, you're absolutely right. I mean, that is the biggest question mark. I was just looking it up as I was writing the newsletter yesterday, or working on the newsletter yesterday. If there is no leader of the DA nominated by Trump on January 20th, they just have a senior DA executive step in as the interim leader, and then that person will be overseeing the rescheduling process. And based on everything that's been revealed in the DA's planned witness testimony, based on the way they've acted throughout this hearing process, it's reasonable to suggest or assume that whoever this acting DEA head will be anti-cannabis reform, right? And so if Trump doesn't do something in the next 5 days and nominate someone and ask them specifically what their position on this process is, it's going to be a difficult person to deal with, is my assumption.
Yeah, and that is the challenge. And as we are speaking now, the nominee for the attorney general is facing a grilling at the Senate Judiciary Committee for Pam Bondi's testimony and answering questions. So there's a lot still in flux. And in between that, there's going to be an inauguration. We're going to have a new president starting next week, which throws, this is the word I would use, a lot of chaos into the process as we go into what would be, as opposed to the hearing happening, there's going to be chaos over the next, certainly, couple of weeks.
Yeah. That's what Trump was elected for, was to throw chaos in. So, if you're a supporter of his, that's probably what you want to hear. If you're not, it's probably not what you want to hear. Right.
Very diplomatic of you, Jeremy.
Yeah, I am a diplomat. No, but I will say this. I mean, I just think at the last piece on the rescheduling delay, right? It is clear to me, just like reading through the DA's planned testimony, like they did not, even if they were a legal proponent of the rule, like the institutional inertia in that agency was to make this not happen and to gum up the works, right? And so, like, if this delay does result in a cleaner, better process, this is a good thing. But again, it's 3 more months of inaction, 3 more months of no federal help for the industry. As you pointed out on the top of this, like the wildfires are going on and are affecting the industry, in a really bad way. And like these people need help, these businesses need help, and Schedule 3 will certainly help them. And now we're waiting.
Yeah. Now we're still waiting, I think is what you
Now we're
actually
still waiting. Yeah, sure.
right.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned it a little bit, and I want to. It's too soon to tell to sort of look back with much distance on the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, when it comes to cannabis. I think in terms of hard and fast things that have changed, I think that's we can look at that and say not a ton has changed. I do think though, starting in March, I mean even well before, but starting in March, there was a drumbeat from the Biden-Harris administration about cannabis and cannabis reform. It did make it to the campaign trail pretty significantly
Yeah.
in the presidential race. And so while I think rules and regulations didn't change at the federal level, the conversation I think maybe did. Or do you think we're too close to it to actually recognize that maybe it didn't change even though people were talking about it?
No. I think you're absolutely right. Well, one, I would say the Overton window. I mean, that's sort of Twitter or X's favorite term. Like, it has shifted on cannabis reform. It's shifted to the point where, a Republican nominee and Donald Trump even endorsed it on the trail. Like, I think you have to really understand that mindset shift that happened before us, right? And so, in terms of leading on the issue, in terms of making it a palatable federal political issue in the U.S., Vice President Harris, President Biden, they did that, right? And they should be commended for that. Um, you know, Rescheduling was a Biden White House led process that, if it happened under the Biden administration, would have been the biggest federal drug policy change in half a century, right? Since the Nixon administration. Like, I don't want to, undermine that, but at the same time,
It didn't
the
happen.
wheels and gears of democracy turn very slowly, and that's what we're seeing happening, right? It will be Trump who ends up taking credit for rescheduling if it happens in this administration. And so, look, like, I do think there was probably more they could have done there. There's probably more pressure they could have put on Democrats in Congress when they had the majority. But at the same time, this is how democracy works. And unfortunately, democracy works on a much slower time frame than, quarterly earnings reports. And so that's what we're seeing.
That is what we are seeing. Anything else capture your attention this week on the cannabis front? It was relatively slow, and now it's like coming full bore with we saw the sales numbers out of Michigan. We will continue to see sales numbers, aggregate sales numbers. We saw sales numbers down actually for Arizona for the year. So I
Yeah.
wrote about it in terms of Michigan. Like there are big numbers coming out of these states, well over $1 billion in Michigan, way more than that. But it seems like some of these markets are coming to the ramp up phase is done and we're at a sort of status quo phase.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. I mean, in terms of what I would love to cover big federal policy changes, but I think the action's happening right now in the states. And I think, what you wrote about Michigan today was pretty interesting, right? It's that the market has matured. I'm certainly not an econ PhD thesis, but like, you're seeing something similar happening across a lot of states where wholesale prices kind of decline, like cannabis is a commodity. But the actual volume that people purchase, I'm trying to sort of distill this down, is the same, right? And so people are purchasing more and more legal weed every day. The revenue is coming in a little bit under each time because the wholesale prices fall. But, this means that more and more people are buying cannabis every day. Like, there are certain tweaks that regulators need to make to ensure the industry is sustainable and profitable. But like, the action is absolutely happening in the states. It's New York, it's Michigan, it's Minnesota, as it rolls out and fits and starts its industry. And so that's what, I'll be looking at really closely in the next year.
Yeah, one of the other big things we will be talking about all year for sure is the idea of hemp versus cannabis or hemp and cannabis. And at the end of last year, for those that were already on vacation, the Farm Bill got punted for at least another year or into 2025. So the current regulations or rules or lack thereof as it relates to hemp derived THC products has been put off in to the Farm Bill, which is still not passed and won't be probably till late 2025.
Yeah.
That does have major implications on the cannabis industry as it exists right now, and certainly for the hemp derived industry right now. And I think this will be one of the big things we're talking about in addition to rescheduling. This will be sort of a trend that continues on in 2025 as this becomes just a bigger industry or slice of the industry, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, 99% of cannabis companies are going to have some hemp-derived product before the end of the year. Like, they would be silly not to, right? By punting the farm bill, the government is basically giving a tacit endorsement to saying, like, here, sell your product, but do it without all these taxes, without all these regulations. And oh, by the way, your market is 50 times the size of that one state market that you're in.
And you
So
can produce in one location and sell it around the country. You could ship direct to customer. Like
you can ship,
there's a
right?
lot going on.
Exactly. Every company would be silly not to take advantage of it. Like, as of the merits of having this regulatory gray area, like, I have my perspective on it. I think a hemp operator would have a different perspective, as a cannabis operator have a different perspective. But that is where certainly the money is going, the product innovation is going, and that's what we're going to be seeing a lot of in the next 12 months.
Yeah, we'll check back with our friends at Cornbread Hemp. We'll check back with our friends at Cantrip. We'll check back with other beverage providers and
Yeah.
others as well that are entering the space throughout the next weeks, months, and probably the entire year. Jeremy, thanks for making time this morning, and we look forward to connect with you next Wednesday, but also on our daily newsletter. Thanks, Jer.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you get our newsletter in your inbox every single day. It's at cultivated.news. For those of you watching on Jeremy's Twitter stream, it is a great read. And if you don't want to see him write little teeny snippets, which you can still do on Twitter or X, you can see him write much longer form in our newsletter. Get that there. You can find it at cultivated.news. Jeremy, thanks so much. See everybody tomorrow.
Thanks, Jay.